Welcome back to this is episode 21 of our CRICKETher weekly vodcast, and once again we are delighted to say that we're back watching some live cricket in beautiful sunshine. We're here again at the Aldridge Academy for Hampshire v Sussex. It's the second leg of what's being termed El Clasicost. And we had a really exciting match last week. Sussex won by 1 run in the end, so we'll be hoping for more of the same today. There's been a couple of really big bits of news this week, so there's plenty to discuss. First up, it was yesterday actually that we heard, so Friday, that we heard that officially the ICC have taken the decision to postpone the Women's World Cup to 2022. So the 50 over World Cup will now be in New Zealand in February 2022 instead of 2021. And we'd previously speculated on the podcast about this. Sid, you'd kind of predicted this to some extent, hadn't you?
Yeah, the ICC had been under pressure from the organising committee in New Zealand, who were desperate for a decision to be taken. They were desperate to get more information and to be able to really start working on it if it was going ahead. They were presumably aware that they would have had to probably change the format in terms of like where the matches were being played, because the format was very zigzaggy all around New Zealand. They wanted an answer, and unfortunately, this was the only answer the ICC could realistically give at this time. If you go, we need an answer now, the only answer they could have given was the one they did, that we're going to push it back a year. So that's a little bit disappointing. Do you think it was the right decision, Raf?
That's an interesting question, it's a difficult one to answer in a way. I feel like the ICC, in their justification, were perhaps slightly spurious justification, in that all the emphasis in the press release was on the fact that in the months leading up to the planned tournament there wouldn't have been very much international cricket taking place, and that actually that would have disadvantaged some teams, and that therefore it's a very positive thing for the players to move it back by a year and hopefully get some internationals up and running in the few months before that. But that does seem to be largely driven, perhaps not totally unexpectedly, by an Indian perspective, which is that, India won't have played very much 50 over cricket in the months preceding the tournament. Now, normally when you have a World Cup, you do have several teams, particularly those who've participated in the qualifying tournament. Previously we've seen teams like Ireland who have had very little international cricket in the months leading up to a world tournament, and the ICC, to be honest, has never seemed overly concerned about that before. Just ahead of the World T20, which took place earlier this year, we had England, India and Australia were fortunate enough amongst themselves to scrabble around at the last minute and organise this tri-series, and so they'd all played each other in the few weeks leading up to the tournament. Nobody turned around and said, well, I'm sorry, that's not fair, we've got to postpone the World Cup. So I think that actually it's some quite spurious grounds that the ICC have given there for postponing it. Having said that, from our perspective as kind of journalists and fans, it probably will be in a way better for the game to have a tournament that can kind of be a proper World Cup, that doesn't have to take place behind closed doors, where you can have fans, you can have it properly kind of reported on by the media. There was a concern that it would go ahead, but it would just be quite small scale and totally kind of sealed off in a biosecure environment. So from that perspective, it's probably good. So to some extent, I kind of welcome it. However, I think it's probably the right decision that's been made for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good news for us on a very personal level is that we were thinking that realistically we probably wouldn't be able to go if it was going to be held in 2021, because even if we were able to get in, it was it felt like a big risk to be going over there, and not something that we should be doing. Whereas see you in 2022, New Zealand. Better start walking, Raf.
Off you go, Sid. And there's obviously been some speculation that we might see kind of mass wave of retirements in the wake of this decision to postpone it. So people for whom the 2021 50 over World Cup was likely to be their last tournament, Mithali Raj, Jilan Goswami, potentially Susie Bates, potentially some England players, Catherine Brunt. Do you think that that's likely?
Well, I think that the New Zealand players will absolutely want to hang on as long as there's the prospect of them playing that home World Cup. That's what they've really been looking forward to and really been clinging on to. So I think that people will try and cling on that extra year, to be honest. And why not? If you're good enough, then you're going to be good enough. So I'm not sure that we will see those retirements.
Okay. And the other big bit of news happened a little bit earlier in the week. Actually, I think just after we'd recorded our Vodcast last week, which was that the BCCI have announced that there is going to be a sort of semi-women's IPL, not a full-blown one, but they are going to play this women's challenge competition that they've had for the last couple of years. So that's going to be with 3 teams this time around. So it's not a full-blown IPL, but it is something, and that was welcomed by the Indian players. However, it was also announced that it was going to clash directly with the Women's Big Bash League, and we know that at least 3 Indian players had already kind of signed up to play in that WBBL and now won't be able to do that, and that led to a little bit of a spat on Twitter between Alyssa Healy and Boria Majumdar, the Indian scholar and journalist. He's got a PhD, don't you know? So yeah, it was an interesting turn of events. Sid, what do you make of it all? Are you Team Healy like me?
Well, Raf, I think there's a couple of there are some interesting points to bear in mind. The first thing that we need to understand is that there was a lot of talk about, that the Indians had signed contracts and things like that. We need to remember that these contracts are always subject to the approval of your home board. So there's a system in place in cricket that's the ICC have put together, where the home board have to give you what's known as a no objection certificate, or an NOC, for you to be able to play in any overseas tournament. So if Heather Knight goes off to the WBBL, she needs a no objection certificate from the ECB to go off and do that, and ditto anybody coming here, etc., etc. And these no objection certificates, these NOCs, are always given out pretty much at the last minute. And any contracts that have been signed would have been subject to non-objection certificates. So nobody's really broken any contracts, because everybody will have known that there was a possibility that that could intervene and stop this going ahead. So I think talk of contracts being signed is a little over dramatic there. No one's really breaking any contracts here. It's just the way things go. And importantly, let me take you on a journey, Raf. Let me take you back in time. Shall we go? Ooh. You have to do the noises, Raf. Ooh. We go back in time, and we're in 2019, and the BCCI are organising the 2019 Women's T20 Challenge, and the Australians are refused no objection certificates by Cricket Australia because they have a training camp, a very important training camp that meant that they couldn't go. So guys, who started this whole thing of we're not going to let our players go to your competition? Far be it for me to defend the BCCI, but I don't think in this instance the BCCI actually started it. So the Australians were refused permission to go to the T20 Challenge last year, and then suddenly the Australians are up in arms because the BCCI have scheduled a tournament that they can't participate in. And yeah, I mean, from the players' perspective, playing the T20 Challenge has been a lovely experience. The BCCI have treated the players really well. They've stayed in absolutely the best hotels. They've had absolutely the best class of flights to get there. It's been really good. And one thing that's going to be very interesting actually is to see how the players now react to this, because effectively some players are going to have a choice. Do I play in this or do I play in that? Do I go to the UAE for a week and participate in this competition where I'm treated really well and I'm put up in the best hotels and I'm flown first class and all this stuff for similar money to going to play in the WBBL for over a month, to have to fly economy class around Australia and slum it a little bit in terms of the hotels you'll be staying in and that kind of thing, and a much harder competition. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that works out.
I guess there's also a prestige thing, isn't there? The WBBL is absolutely by far the most exciting and the women's T20 league in the world, where the most talent is on display. So it's possibly about a little bit more than just money. But I do take your point. I think that will be really interesting to see. The last thing that we have been kind of engaging in this week was on Thursday we were able to watch the first England inter-squad warm-up match ahead of their series against South Africa in September, and it was all live streamed. You could see it ball by ball. We could see Anya Shrubsole umpiring. She's obviously coming back from her injury, wasn't able to play.
Is it a very dramatic wide signal?
That's true. I think maybe it's a post cricket career option for her.
Absolutely. So with a wide signal like that, you're in.
Anyway, aside from the fact that Anya Shrubsole has a potential future in umpiring ahead of her, what do you think we learned from that warm-up, Sid?
Well, in some ways, the main thing that we learn, which we've also learned watching some of these county games we've watched, is that everybody's very rusty. And in terms of the up-and-coming international series, I think that that's going to really show itself in there. You know, we talked a couple of weeks ago about match fitness. You know, nobody's match fit at this stage, and we could see some very interesting scorecards in that South Africa series. I think that, you know, we could see some very unexpected stuff and some very low totals as rusty teams get bowled out for practically nothing. So, you know, I think that what that really means is that we're going to have to take probably the international series with a little pinch of salt in terms of the results. But, you know, everyone's keen to get in there, everyone's keen to play, and, you know, let's just enjoy it, whatever. We know there's going to be throw up some odd results, but let's just go and do it. What about the players, Raf? What did we see in terms of the players? What did you feel?
Well, in terms of people kind of who have been slightly on the fringes of England making a case for themselves, you've got to say that George Railways had a very good day indeed, didn't she? She made 50 runs, took a few wickets, I think, just bowled very sensibly. Didn't seem to be as rusty actually with her bowling than some of the other bowlers. Interestingly, I don't quite know why that was, but yeah, she certainly had a good day. I think you tweeted, or rather we tweeted from CRICKETher saying that she's proved that she's like Thomas. She's a very useful engine. So yeah, there was that. It was interesting to see that Tammy Beaumont was keeping wicket for one of the sides. Obviously, Amy Jones keeping wicket for the other side. So therefore, there's a bit of a kind of indication there that she is their now official backup wicket keeper. So
I think we knew that on the grounds there was no other option. But yeah.
Yeah, I just felt that it was so exciting to be back watching the England players actually out there playing again. There wasn't any commentary on the live stream. It was essentially a fixed camera from either end, but you know, that's okay. We absolutely loved every minute of it, and so grateful, I guess, to the ECB for making that available for people to watch. Anyway, I think that's about all from us this week. We'll see you in a week's time. Don't know where we'll be. Who knows? See you then.
Bye.